I'm here. I see us. I hear us. The video looks great. Guys, welcome everybody. This is Egon Russia. We have an American Sputnik, or as Americans say, a Sputnik, as a guest straight from Kazan, right? Nice to have you. And American Sputnik just he has a YouTube channel. It's linked in the title, so go and subscribe to his channel as well. And he's got like an awesome video that's going viral right now. But first of all, thanks for being here, and just let us know who you are in a way that you want to. And guys, if you have questions, if you want to use super chats, this way they are highlighted. But yeah, tell us more. I'm interested as well. You're new person to me as well in YouTube field.
California. I was most recently living out in Colorado with my wife, and we've been married 5 years. She's from Russia originally. She's from Kazan, but we met in the United States. And we've been traveling out here over the years of being married. And, I've been studying Russian over that course of time. And we finally decided last year that I wanted to get residency and finally move out here. So we made the permanent move just a few months ago. So I live here in Kazan, Russia, in the capital of Tatarstan. I actually live like 40 minutes outside the city. But yeah, I love it. And I just kind of recently started a YouTube channel. And also, I am a veteran of the U.S. Army. I served in Iraq and Jordan. So yeah, that's a part of my past, and obviously I'm just a veteran living my life. I just had a newborn son about a month ago, so I'm just getting used to. Thank you, getting used to being a father and learning.
US Army veteran, gotcha. So I just was in Kazan, and you wrote to me that I didn't know that you were there, but uh, I was there for 2 or 3 nights, so definitely we could have done something. But I'm definitely gonna come back, and hopefully we can do something there. Kazan is, people say go outside Moscow. Well, I did, and you are there right now. And man, they mean like it's shit outside Moscow, but it actually, I think it's only gets better after Moscow. No disrespect to Moscow, but Kazan is, oh my God, you live in a wonder world in a most respectful way.
My friend, he's originally from Novosibirsk. He grew up in the U.S. his whole life. He came out to visit, and he stopped in Kazan a few nights, and he just could not believe how it looked in the city. I mean, most people are in shock when they walk down the street, and I'm 100% in agreement. A lot of people comment, leave Moscow, it's the only nice city. It's completely false. And, my channel's goal is to really focus more in places outside of Moscow and deep inside of Russia. I mean, pretty soon I'm going to be going to Naberezhny Chelny, so places most foreigners have never heard of, and I want to show everybody. I saw you were there too.
I can reveal, this is a secret. Out of the 15 cities in that short time, I like everything about Russia, in the even the worst places probably. But I gotta tell you, Nabrizhny Chelny was a bit like, let's say it needs more time to evaluate. It was like it was cool, and but it was probably the most modest place, kind of a most Russian, most generic Russian in a way, not to be disrespectful, but yeah, it's also in Tatarstan, right?
Real Russian city. It's an industrial capital. I believe they make UAS vehicles there and stuff like that. So they manufacture a lot of cars, and I believe semi trucks. I believe Kamaz as well. They build those out there.
That's the city of Kamaz, by the way. Indeed, I could find more Kamaz, magnets and stuff, tourist stuff, than like with the Nabrizhny Chelny. But anyways, by the way, how was the decision then going to Russia? Did you have any experience except from your wife, based on what she told you? But how hard was it to do this huge leap in the, definitely if you're not aware of what to be expecting of Russia? It's like dangerous place, you know, for Americans especially. That's what they claim.
I spent some winter times here. I went up to Murmansk and different cities. My older brother had come out here in the past, and my other older brother came back here in 2002. So I've always kind of had a fascination with Russia. And, I still didn't really, I was still shocked when I first got here to see how beautiful it was. Because in the West, they show Russia as this, depressing place with, very run down looking. And then when I, got here, I'm like, this is one of the most beautiful and well organized countries I've ever seen, So I'd been coming out here and spending a lot of time. The last couple years, I was spending like 3+ months at a time out here, and just living with their family. working in our dacha and all that type of stuff. So I kind of got used to the flow of things. My Russian started getting much better, and we were pretty. I think a couple years ago I had the idea to come out here, and then last year we're like we're doing it for sure, and we just finally made the move. The move itself was the hardest, obviously. We had to bring our dog. My wife was pregnant at the time. We wanted to make sure our son was born here and everything. Brought all our suitcases and our dog, and that was definitely challenging, but it's definitely rewarding to be here, and I'm honored to be here.
Anyway,
Hopefully, mine
being
doesn't cut out.
American vets, did you have like, did that add to your expectations of the original before coming in for the first time to Russia? Did it add anything to this,
Obviously, concerns having that background. I'm a combat veteran and all that. I know that relations aren't always the best. Especially during a few years ago in the start of the SVO and all that. So, I was a little worried, and a lot of people are telling me, "Don't go right now. It's not a good time. They're gonna take you away. They're gonna arrest you. This and that." And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna believe it. Like, what happens in life happens in life. I just want to go out there and be around our loved ones, which my wife's family. We grew very close together, and her mother-in-law and her grandmother, we've grown very close together, and they're my family as well, and I want to help them and take care of them. And so I don't really, obviously, anything political going on, like I'm going to do what it takes to get to them and help them. So I did have my doubts. I was a little concerned, about my past, but when you're doing a visa and stuff, you put in your information. If they don't want you in the country, they're not going to give you a visa.
so how do they, Russians, or well, Russian means, by the way, also Tatar people, everything. That's for you guys watching over there. All kinds of Russians. How do they actually, not receive? How do they view you, or talk to you, approach you when once they hear you're American?
On average, it's really good interactions. Most people are like really grateful that or honored that I'm even in their country, especially because I'm always out in like our Dutch area and the smaller areas outside of Kazan, which most of tourists or Americans would really never go. So a lot of the neighbors invite me over to, hey, let's go hit my banya, let's have some drinks, stuff like that. People are really friendly and welcoming. I have had a few somewhat negative interactions, but to be honest, I feel like it's a big difference. Like being an American in Russia, it's more people are very interested and very welcoming. But I noticed, like, my wife had, issues in the United States being Russian there. I feel like she had a lot more negative reactions to being from Russia there than I do being from America here. So I am received pretty well. And, people here are very hospitable and very kind, and they're kind to their guests.
Actually, I would say they are more friendly to you the one from, let's say, from the unfriendly country than for, let's say, to ordinary other, Russians, because people do not mix up politics. Most people do not mix up politics with anything else. You're still an American. They, I feel sorry. I feel they probably feel like more honored for you to, despite the situation, despite they know about the propaganda against the Russia and Russians. So they actually like, they respect you for being there, especially if you're like with open mind in Kazan or whatever you are. By the way, do you know other Americans in the your neighborhood, in your area, or are you still? And how long have you been now in Kazan?
And like, yeah, I've been here since May, and I got here right before Victory Day, so I was able to go to the Victory Day parade. And obviously, my wife's grandmother is a veteran of the Great Patriotic War. So obviously, it's a big day for her, and all the family comes to her house, and we hang out and celebrate that day. Obviously. So I was glad to get there just in time for that, especially for the 80 years of victory celebration. It was really awesome, and yeah, I've been here 2 months. I don't know any other Americans out here. I haven't met any. I did get a contact for a guy in Yashkarala. He's originally, I guess, used to go to my Orthodox church in Colorado, and someone gave me his number. We've been talking, and I'm probably going to go out there and meet him up and probably film around that city. It looks beautiful out there as well. Yeah, I mean, your typical visa, you can get like the 3-year multiple entry. You'll fill out some documents, they'll ask some questions, and just obviously just be honest and transparent and everything. and you get your visa pretty fast. I think the first visa I got, I used an agency in Los Angeles who got it for me in about a few weeks. And then last year, I received разрешение на временное проживание, which is RVP. And, I had to do all these steps, pass a language exam, and do all that. It was before the shared values thing was released. And, so I had done it that way and I received that. But one thing that everyone should definitely know is that you also need a special visa for entering and exiting the country. Just if you have RVP by itself, it's not good enough to enter and exit the country. So that's definitely something you should know. And I had to go to Kyrgyzstan and get that, a visa to like come back here. And I came back through Yekaterinburg. And it really is unfortunate because I had filmed there a little vlog and somehow I accidentally deleted it. And so, yeah, I lost all that. And I kind of always wanted to go there and take the train to Kazan, and that's what we did. So we chose that route. But unfortunately, I didn't get the footage. I made a mistake, and then yeah. But either way, I'll be going back there soon. Beautiful city.
Unfortunately, where the Tsar was killed. And it's a top three, I think top three city, right? The third biggest city or fourth, maybe. I don't know now. It's definitely worth visiting. Yeah. But I didn't know about this special entrance exit thing that you mentioned.
I got it taken care of, and I made it to my home, to my loved ones and stuff. So yeah, it is definitely something that obviously, if you have it, make sure you have all your extra stuff in order. And obviously, I know that's only for certain citizenships as well. American is one of them that you'll need that. I think it's a private visa or something for entering and exiting. And then, but yeah, I'll be getting Benjet pretty soon, permanent residency. Obviously, my son was born here in Russia, so I'll have that, and that is like obviously a separate booklet that looks like a passport, and it's you can use that for everything, and it'll be much easier. RVP is just a stamp and a page in your passport, so it's just in my American one. But Benjet is definitely a better document. I'll have that pretty soon here.
You want to ask some questions from American in Kazan, which is really cool two words combo because usually everybody's in Moscow. Some are not, but Kazan, that's a weirdly enough not popular place, but it should be because I think it's the greatest, one of the greatest locations in the Western Russia. So we are live. Join the chat, guys, and please select the video as well and watch. And if you can use super chat if you want to. Before we go into the night topic, because that's the viral video right now, which is really cool, man. Really happy for you. But what about in general comparisons for you as an American, Russia and USA? What's the biggest difference, in street, in life,
Like the main huge difference, I guess, when you're talking like the videos I've been making recently, obviously you walk around any city in the United States, it's especially in the city centers, it's usually the most characters around, the most homeless and stuff. And here it's everything is very orderly, very clean. They take care of their people here, and I'm very impressed by it, obviously. And I just felt obligated to make those last couple videos, just because I love showing Russia to other people. Other differences, I guess, just somewhat cultural differences, you can say. I mean, I know that there's like small things like I don't know. I guess you could say like shaking someone's hand under a doorway, or obviously like making sure if you're gonna be with a Russian woman, you bring her a uneven amount of roses. Don't make that mistake, obviously, because even amount means for obviously a funeral. So there's some stuff like that. I wouldn't say that it's like the biggest cultural differences, but honestly, life feels almost similar to the U.S. Just things look differently, obviously.
if we're talking about the social media sphere, what about the street view differences? Are they true? Meaning, comparing. I mean, people. There's a lot of videos all around the world for years about showing America, who is usually they show the worst places, which is like if we're talking about California with Los Angeles, we're talking about the what's the word? The place where all the homeless lives, and of course outside Skid Row, yeah, Skid Row, and then the drunk and the druggies, etc. Is that comparison fair enough? And of course, they show the beautiful Moscow with everything glittering
But
and.
yeah, this is about 800 kilometers away, and obviously, it's just a false myth that people come up with. Obviously,
But it's more true than it's not, I would say, as well. Sure, there are places in Russia as well, but the worst place in America is probably way worse than the worst place. Not America, in some city of America is way worse than the most worst in Russia. In Russia, though, you would, to be honest, guys, and we are open, and unlike the ones who think we're just working for somebody and showing this, because this cannot be true. I would say that in Russia you can find places which would, if you're just coming out of airport from the west, might be a little bit surprising to you. Maybe a little bit older buildings, neighborhoods which look maybe a little bit run down, and you would say this is horrible. But in fact, there's like, if you go inside, the places are very nice. So it's actually just the outside of the houses. This can be found probably more more often in Russian cities, in some cities. You won't find that in Moscow. You won't find it in some other places, but you can find those. But they are not dangerous. You won't find places in most of the Russian cities which are hashtag most do not go air zones, do not go zones. That's you won't find those places. You can lie that they are, but that's a whole different. That's a YouTube game.
Soviet neighborhoods and areas, like, it may shock some Westerners or something. Say, "Oh, it looks bad there, dangerous, depressing," and that's my point. I want to walk around these neighborhoods like that, and I want to show that. Obviously, I'm walking in an area where mostly everything is Soviet style around me. At the beginning of that video, and instead of running into trouble, I run into a very nice babushka selling berries, and I buy some berries off her in the street, just to show the difference of, like, you may go to a place in the US and you'll walk around the metro station, and you're not going to find an interaction like that. It's kind of just going to be, very watchful of the kind of characters that are surrounding that area, because that's just normal life over there. Here, things may look older, but in my opinion, I like the Soviet style apartments. To me, that's beautiful, and they're lively neighborhoods. You got little mini bazaars, and you can buy different things and fresh fruits and stuff. So, I like that a lot more. Then it may look scary on the outside, but, like, in those neighborhoods is the best, like, heart of Russia, that you'll really get the real experience of Russia. And I honestly appreciate that the most, and want to show that in a good light on my channel, that don't be intimidated by these places by appearance, and show the kind of people and things that are going on in those neighborhoods, which are actually normal.
Pinpoint. Julia says the bigger cities are usually nicer in Russia, but the smaller towns or villages aren't as nice as in the US. Tells me Russia put all its money in the metropolitan areas, ignoring the rest. How do you think about that? You've been there only a few months, but I'm gonna let you start.
Here for over the course of years. I've been all across Russia. I've been to Siberia and all that. So, I've been to Irkutsk, I've been to Samara, I've been to Ijevsk, and, different cities like that. So, honestly, it really depends on, each region is making more money than the other. Some regions receive money from Moscow, and other regions, like Tatarstan, where I live, give money to Moscow. Obviously, we produce a lot of oil here, so we are a very well off region, and they take pretty good care of their cities. I mean, my take on that is, going to these other places, I wouldn't say that, have to be painted as, like, some super glorious place. Like, obviously, any main city would be like that. In the United States, on the other hand, you go to older, smaller cities like Colorado Springs, for instance. That's not a very large city that, a lot of people outside of the US really know about. It's a decent sized city, and it looks worse and more dangerous than any small region and republic in Russia, and is, well, way more untaken care of. The roads are, extremely bad there. So honestly, yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, my best way to answer that question.
This would be an easy way out to explain it like that, but in fact, it's probably not true. There are definitely smaller cities that are super nice. For example, okay, right now I had my first proper journey. I've been around the Western Russia and smaller cities near this bigger cities, sure. But now I went really far, and I can tell you, for example, my favorite places were actually, even though I'm gonna tell you, Kazan was freaking amazing. Ufa was amazing. These are 1 million cities, okay. But we go down, like let's say 500,000 Cheboksary. I'm gonna reveal it right now. This is the most popular. That place took my heart. Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you that's the greatest place ever, and it's that's the Chubasha Republic. That's a whole different neighborhood. Or let's say Arzamas in Vladimirsk, Arzamas in Nizhny Novgorod Oblast, 100,000 people. It absolutely was amazing. Sure, it was quieter. It was 100,000 populated city. It was super nice. But guys, remember, in Russia, you do find on the outskirts places which are not cities which are not Moscow. You will find places that are a little bit rough, but inside they're probably mostly they're like they're really nice. And remember, guys, you won't find the outskirts being dangerous or like full of crazy people attacking you or whatever, or night, or especially even at nighttime. Speaking of nighttime, so let because that's the two. Russia, according to the West, dangerous, and Russia at nighttime is even more dangerous. This is the stereotype which people like to play along and make fun of, unless they know anything about reality. But you, as an American or as a foreigner in general, so you were walking around. Of course, that was a you did a video. You probably walked around, but after the first time, if you had any effect of stereotypes in your mind, the first time you went out in Russia at nighttime, you probably were a little bit not worried, but on the edge, or a little bit worried, maybe tops. But after that, how would you describe Russia being on the outskirts, for example, in any city? Is it dangerous, especially if you don't speak Russian? What can go wrong, or will anything go wrong?
I lived in Los Angeles for a very long time. I've lived in other cities in Southern California, Colorado Springs, Seattle, Washington, and not one city. And, I've been, like I said, all across Russia, especially walking at night, can even come close to compare to the situations and dangerous activities that go on in those cities on a daily basis. I mean, especially Seattle. I worked in downtown Seattle, and it was just shootings, probably a couple times, once a week at least, tons of crime. And obviously, I've had a lot of, pretty sketchy situations here or out there. But here, walking around at night, for instance, I went to Samara last year and somebody was like, don't go there. It's dangerous. And then, especially as a tourist, it was actually somebody in Russia telling me that. And so I went there and I was just like, this is, what do you mean? This is a great city for one. And I was staying in an area near this Vokzal, and that they were like, that's the most dangerous part. I was staying at a Soviet hotel there. And I was like, yeah, I have no problem here at all. Like, this is way safer than any place I walked around in the United States. I mean, maybe to somebody here that could be considered dangerous, but obviously, if they haven't been out there, they really don't understand the differences that I see. So to me, it's kind of just like, oh, it's fine. Like, I'm not even worried at all. So yeah, those stereotypes of Russia being dangerous and then Russia being dangerous at night, obviously, it's when you're comparing it to United States, it will not even come to the slightest bit close. Obviously, it's other cities in Western Europe as well.
Well, me living in Finland, which has like less people living in Finland than in the entire Finland than in St. Petersburg. So I'm gonna tell you, my live streams, I do live streams a lot. I do filming a lot, and very often I am at nighttime in various places. If you know me, guys, on my channel, I never actually, I do not prefer the touristy centers at all. Maybe for the camera, but usually I'm on the outskirts. I love suburbs. I love Soviet suburbs, especially. And yeah, there's nothing to be worried about. And speaking English on the phone loud enough and being tipsy, usually in my case. So it's totally fine. I've been to also, like, by the way, speaking of Samara, that was the second top locations on the trip, top three. Out of the 15 cities, the last new city for me was Samara. And yeah, once again, there was a so-called old city. You probably seen it. I wasn't at the Vokzal. I was at the, well, 30 minutes walk from train station, but the city center, but old center. And if you remember, there was like super old Slavic buildings which look like unlivable. That was the thing. Once again, you can. Yes, super beautiful, but every other is like probably collapsed or half collapsed. But then I noticed that people actually live there, and it's like historical center, I guess. But that's the only place. I went on the outskirts, and I actually found the probably the nicest and awesome looking suburbia. Well, big buildings and the tons of life, totally normal. And even this historical center where I spend my also nights, days and nights, were totally fine. There's nothing actually. The only minus is because Samara is a smaller city. There was not a lot of people going around, which was weird for me because I usually people are in Russia are very lively. Suburbs are lively all through all the way to after midnight. You got pubs, or not pubs, but you have restaurants working after 12 if there's like decent sized city. So I love the vibe. So that was actually missing on the old, because the houses were historic. There's so much information about this because people want to paint Russia and imagine tens and decades and decades of false narrative about Russia. It's been dangerous, and there's a certainly, I think, and I know so that there's a certain powers that want to portray Russia like that, because the best thing that actually could change people's minds towards between cultures is actually like just going places or speaking the language and actually going there, and they don't want you to do neither of them, especially now. So all of this information usually, a lot of people who know a little bit of the truth are going to receive it well, but those who are 100% against it, they won't believe you and me, even though we show camera or if we show live is unedited. They won't believe anything, but I guess that's how the game works.
Like that, oh yeah, you're paid or something to do whatever you're doing. Because when I see those comments on my channel, obviously I'm new to YouTube, so I'm just like, okay, that makes no sense. But just people don't want, and other people really like get almost upset when you're showing that Russia looks good. Like it really upsets them that their expectations weren't met, and I've seen a lot of that from some of the Americans and other Westerners in my comments that they're just it seems like they're genuinely upset that their expectations weren't met, and they just get really spiteful towards it.
Attitude or Russophobia, which is in the Western world kind of that's the platform of all discussions about Russia. First of all, you have to think in a certain way, and once you go the other route, it usually has to be people are freaking their minds if you dare to speak based on your experiences and not based on the anti-Russian propaganda. So that's very sad, but I guess we are doing there's nothing wrong about in any countries, in any places in the world, to show truth between cultures, and showing especially the good thing, the good sides of Russia. And if there's something negative, I don't hide it, but there's only few things you might find it. For example, like you said, you have few negative experience based because of you are an American. Well, imagine he lives in a city with 1.1 million, so that's not a lot. And I know that in the in the west where I live, unfortunately, until I move to Russia, I hope, um, if I speak Russian, I get dirty looks even after 30 years of living in this country. So that's the difference.
I would imagine that there you may even have more issues for sure. Obviously, it being Finland and all that. In the United States, I was like I said, I was coming back every year, and even when it would come to my work or even people, obviously, me being in the military, people I served with would see these pictures on Facebook, and a lot of them would be shocked that wow, that looks really beautiful. A lot of them would like kind of get like, why would you go there? And I go to work and I was like gone, and they're like, oh, so yeah, I was in Russia, and they're like, why would you go to Russia? And then I show them pictures, and they're like, wow, that's actually pretty nice looking there. So a lot of people, even to the point where they kind of were like, I want to go there now. I had a completely different idea until I started kind of, me being their friend and seeing that all my travels there, and it made them even want to travel here. But there's other people who just won't change their mind either. Once, I think 2 years ago, I was told by a relative, like, "Oh, how are you eating? There's no food in the grocery stores. There's no food. The sanctions are working." And I said, let me video call you in like 5 minutes. I went to Pichorchka and I was just like, yeah, we got all the food here. And they're like, so what? The news is lying. Yeah, they're lying. Like, what do you think, man? You know,
Visa, there's a free visa, online visa, which is basically free. It's $50 for 50 something countries, 53 countries. But for Americans, you guys got the best visa ever, which is 3-year visa. And but where should they travel? What kind of expectations and preparations should they do um, for this trip if they want to see if this is true what we speak about?
obviously, plan out where you're going to go. Look at, the top best things to see in those cities, just kind of plan your itinerary and it's kind of just whatever you want to do in each of those cities. But preparing, make sure you get your visa and, obviously if you're coming in winter, bring something to be warm. Obviously, that's a given right there.
I actually had a couple of big YouTubers from England, and they didn't know, and they know only Spasiba, and they made a 3-week trip across Russia. The Dabble and Travel channel, which is I made some interviews on my channel as well. But anyways, even on that level, meaning zero level of Russian, you are able to survive, and actually, it's gonna make it more interesting because most of Russians gonna go they're gonna try really hard to understand you, even not speaking any language if they don't speak any language. But if you know a few words, it's gonna help a lot. Few words are gonna carry a lot, especially if they see that you're trying to speak a little bit. All right, that's they're gonna react in a very beautiful way and definitely help you out. So you are a YouTuber. You're making YouTube stuff, gonna explore Russia from the American point of view. You have a life in Russia, a wife and a kid, and so what is your what do you wish to achieve on your YouTube?
Something, kind of just I just felt like why not give it a try, like, I got nothing better to do. And plus the other thing is, like we were just talking about, I'm very passionate about Russia and Russian culture, language, history, that, I really want to show other people the way I see things here, and just over the time I've been coming. So that's the point of the channel. I want to go and just travel and show, the hospitality of the people, the beautiful places, the nature, different cities, historical things, going on adventures, trying to interact with people as much as possible, learn about the other different ethnic groups in Russia, maybe hear them speak some of their languages and learn a little bit about them. Here, obviously, we got the Tatar people. My wife is Tatar, part Tatar, and my son is also Tatar as well. So yeah, my channel is all about travel. I really don't want to get into politics at all on my channel. Just more just going on adventures, exploring these beautiful cities, and just showing people the way I see Russia.
Tatarstan alone is a huge area with tons of history. So not just focus on that, but maybe there's no need to run away back to Moscow, even though it might give you views and you should go there. But I mean, opening Tatarstan and the neighboring the regions, oblast and republics would be a great idea, I would say, for X amount of time. As a core content, maybe.
I plan on doing surrounding areas like Ulyanov, Samara. Obviously, I want to go to the Chuvash Republic, Yashkarala, those different parts, surrounding Tatarstan, Izhevsk. That's kind of where I want to show. There's so much to show here in and around Kazan as well, that I feel like I can make videos consecutively for a couple months just about different things here that probably most YouTubers or most people don't really know about. So I definitely like doing that. I'm not in a hurry to go to Moscow. Obviously, if I do go, I'll show it. But like I said before, I really want my channel to be more surrounded on traveling deep into Russia and showing different places that the average YouTuber off the beaten trail type thing doesn't show. And, one thing I kind of am coming up with, obviously, like I decided if I get 100K subscribers, I'm going to take the Trans-Siberian from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok and stop in as many cities along the way. Obviously, that's a very, yeah, dude, I'd be down, dude. It's a difficult journey. It'll take time, being on a train all that long. It's hard to be away from the family, but it's something I'd like to do, and I'd be more than honored to show it to as many people as I can.
This is from Kazan, like And this is, well, it has religious background, but this is like a touristy version. This is a touristy one. So I wore it, but I'm not gonna wear it since I found it's a little bit different than the ones worn by Muslims around the world because they're not touristy. But for some reason, I asked a lot of people, it's like it's kind of okay to wear in Tatarstan or Bashkortostan, which is the next region, or Chuvash. It's kind of okay because if they're like touristy, but it does have a religious background. I'm just Russian Orthodox, so I'm not gonna, but I did because they said it was okay. But then I found this one, which is totally okay.
Kyrgyzstan, in Kazakhstan, they all have their own similar types of hat in that region, Central Asian region. Yeah, no, I love traveling to post-Soviet countries. I've obviously been to Russia, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan before. I've actually been to a strange part of Kazakhstan, Aktau on the Caspian Sea. So I never actually went to Almaty or any of those cities, but very cool. And I definitely want to go back to those places as well in my future videos. Senmases means hello and stuff like that. So there are a few. I know Eshbishmak, which is a треугольник, like the Tatar pirashki. I'm pretty sure you probably tried one. Tatar is called Eshbishmak, and obviously Rakhmad means thank you. So Allah Bersan is God willing, I believe. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. But yeah, I am. Obviously, I hear her grandmother. She speaks Tatar, and she's 99 years old. And she could go from Russian to Tatar like that, just instantly. She did a interview on the Russian news. She's a veteran of the Great Patriotic War, and she did one portion in Tatar and one portion in Russian. So yeah, it's pretty cool to hear that language. It's definitely different.
Or Russian and Tatar, or is it like Russian and Tatar on the side? Because I heard both speaking fluently in Republic, and yes, that is modern Russia. People speak different languages in different republics or oblasts, and it's totally fine. Even American is fine, or I mean English. But are you what languages you're studying now?
I'm like grinding at it. I got a teacher right now I'm meeting with every week. I'm doing a lot of self learning. I'm speaking in Russian with, her family doesn't speak any English, and my Russian's getting very fluent, so I'm like full time focusing and getting better at Russian. I still make some grammar mistakes and stuff like that. But the one thing I would recommend if you are learning Russian, if you focus too much on grammar at the beginning, you're not going to want to continue. Just learn as many words as possible. And like, you had said earlier, people are going to help you. People are going to help your mistakes. They're going to understand what you're saying and they're going to respect that you're trying and they will fix, the mistakes that you make, which that's how I learned grammar is just from other people. And I always tell everybody, if I make a mistake, please correct me. I won't get offended.
So, guys, I want to thank you, Marcelo, for coming on. I think it's really nice to hear your story and talk to you, like genuinely. And I feel connected to Kazan because of this. And like I said, Kazan had an influence on me. Chuvashia in Tatarstan had a great impact on my one of the big ones in a surprising because I know Russia. I'm Russian who's never lived in Russia, but and I now past 6 years or more I've got to know Russia fairly a lot, but this was something special. So I feel connected to you and you being in Kazan.
I mean, thank you for having me on. Like I said, it's an honor. It's very cool. I've been watching your channel for a good amount of time and stuff, so I appreciate that.